John Cazale as Vito Corleone. John Holland Cazale was born on August 12, 1935, in Massachusetts. At the age of 37, he played Vito Corleone in The Father of God, Vito's confused and ultimately unhappy brother. Vito's frailty evokes both sorrow and deep sympathy, reflecting the quiet loneliness of Cazale's own life. In just 6 years, Cazale made just 5 films, all of which were nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. From The Conversation to Dog Day Afternoon, The Godfather Part 2 to The Deer Hunter, his performances were filled with incredible emotional depth. Director Sidney Lumet remarked, "Cazale had an endless sadness that was evident in every film." Then came the bad news, terminal lung cancer. In 1977, Cazale was determined to complete The Deer Hunter despite his doctor's warnings. Robert De Niro even paid out of his own pocket to ensure the crew kept Cazale on, knowing no one else could take on the role. His life partner, Meryl Streep, was by his side every moment, trying to hold him together a little longer. John Cazale died on March 13, 1978, in New York City at the age of 42. He was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Malden, Massachusetts. The Deer Hunter hasn't even come out yet, but with friends like Al Pacino, Cazale is and will always be one of the greatest actors of all time. Abe Vigoda as Salvatore Tessio. Abe Vigoda was born on February 24, 1921, in Brooklyn, New York, to Russian Jewish immigrants. At the age of 51, he played Salvatore Tessio in The Godfather, 1972, a once loyal capo regime who eventually betrays the Corleone family. Though his role was limited to the first film, Tessio became a symbol of silent betrayal, and Vigoda played the role with a chilling calm and resignation. In real life, Vigoda was as famous for not dying as he was for his acting. In 1982, People magazine mistakenly reported his death, forcing him to pose in a coffin, holding the article, to prove he was still alive. The joke has become a decades-long running joke on TV and the internet, and Vigoda himself has often indulged in morbid humor. He has been married twice, but found no lasting happiness in either relationship. After the death of his second wife in 1992, he lived a reclusive life, openly admitting his frustration at being pigeonholed into supporting roles that limited his artistic development. Vigoda's quiet, intense demeanor, however, turned that limitation into his legacy. His line, "Tom, can you get me out of trouble?" He is, nostalgically, one of the most quoted lines in mafia history. His death on January 26, 2016, at the age of 94, at his daughter's home in New Jersey, was no longer a rumor, but the end of a long and tumultuous life. Julie Gregg as Sandra Corleone. Julie Gregg, born Beverly Marie Scalzo, was born on January 24, 1937, in Niagara Falls, New York. She was 35 years old in 1972. She played Sandra Corleone, the gentle, soft-spoken wife of Sonny Corleone, in the cinematic masterpiece The Godfather. Despite her short screen time, the role has forever been synonymous with her, and she has become a cinematic legend. However, Julie Gregg's career and personal life were much more complicated than what appears on screen. The daughter of Italian-American parents, Julie showed a passion for the arts early on. A music scholarship took her to California, where she began her journey as an actress and singer. She became a familiar face on American television throughout the 1960s and 1980s, appearing in major series such as Mission Impossible, Batman, Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-O, and The Virginian. On stage, she was nominated for a Tony Award for her role in the musical The Happy Time and won a Theatre World Award, celebrated for her enchanting voice and elegant stage presence. Despite her remarkable talent, Julie Gregg faced difficulties in her personal life. She endured 2 failed marriages, and the constant pressure to choose between the spotlight and a stable family life left her in a constant state of stress and lingering regret. After many years in the spotlight, Julie gradually retired from the entertainment industry in the late 1980s. Her last television appearance was in 1987. Julie Gregg died of cancer on November 7, 2016 in Van Nuys, California at the age of 79. There was no lavish funeral or media frenzy. She quietly left this world, just as she appeared in The Godfather, gentle, resilient, and silently shouldering her burdens. A talented artist whose life was filled with triumphs and sorrows, most of which were left unanswered. The Godfather is not just a movie. Castellano Chongvai Peter Clemenza. Richard Salvatore Castellano was born on September 4, 1933, in Queens, New York, to Sicilian immigrants. At the age of 39, he played Peter Clemenza in The Godfather, 1972, a loyal and intelligent regime boss, famous for his classic ad-libbed line, "Put down the gun, get the cannoli." He was also nominated for an Oscar for Lovers and Other Strangers, 1970. Castellano was a familiar face on both television and film, having starred in The Super, 1972, and Joe and Sons, 1975 and 1976. He often played gruff but lovable Italian dads, with a mix of toughness and charm. However, he did not return for The Godfather Part 2, reportedly due to a dispute with director Francis Ford Coppola over creative control of the dialogue. His absence was perhaps the beginning of a gradual fading of the spotlight. Castellano also struggled with poor health and personal pressures. He faced heart problems and industry stress, which took a toll on his relationships. He was married twice. One marriage ended in divorce. The other, although it lasted, became strained as his health declined. On December 10, 1988, Richard Castellano died suddenly of a heart attack at his home in North Bergen, New Jersey, at the age of 55. His early death left Hollywood mourning a talent that never got to shine fully. Richard Bright as Al Neri. Richard James Bright was born on June 28, 1937 in Brooklyn, New York. At the age of 35, he played Al Neri in The Godfather, 1972, a cold, quiet, and fiercely loyal bodyguard to Michael Corleone. Though reserved in his dialogue, Neri is the silent hand of death throughout the trilogy, present in every carefully calculated act of violence. Bright is one of only 5 actors to appear in all 3 Godfather films. He executes Don Barzini in the Baptismal Massacre, secretly dispatches Fredo at Lake Tahoe, and swiftly carries out Archbishop Gilday's sentence in the 3rd film. Neri doesn't talk much, but when he acts, he's decisive. Off-screen, Bright's life is much less glamorous. He started acting at 18 on live television, but spent decades fighting for recognition. In the 1960s, he faced multiple arrests for his role in The Beard, a controversial play that was deemed obscene. Although he won his case under First Amendment protection, the label of a troublemaker stuck. His marriage to actress Rutania Alda suffered from stress, largely due to his frequent absences, which included independent film projects, experimental theater, and even interactive media like Ripper. His relationship with his children became increasingly strained. Bright later required regular oxygen therapy due to emphysema, a condition he skillfully incorporated into his acting to hide his frailty. Tragedy struck on February 18, 2006, when Bright was struck by the rear wheel of a tour bus while crossing the street in Manhattan. The driver was unaware. No criminal charges were filed, just a suspended license. Bright died at age 68, leaving behind a legacy that remains The Godfather's most haunting shadow. Sterling Hayden as Captain McCluskey. Sterling Hayden was born on March 26, 1916, in Upper Montclair, New Jersey. At the age of 56, he played the corrupt and brutal Captain McCluskey in The Godfather, a role that lasted only a few minutes but left a lasting impression thanks to his massive physique and tormented eyes. Standing 6'4" in, Hayden was once considered the most handsome man on screen in the 1940s. However, he hated Hollywood fame, seeing it as a means to make money for his real passion, sailing. "I crossed the ocean, disappeared from the film set, and lived for the sea." That pursuit of freedom came at a personal cost. He endured 2 failed marriages, to actresses Madeleine Carroll and then Betty DeNoon, and became estranged from his children. Plagued by alcoholism and guilt, he often blamed himself for selling out to Hollywood. "I never wanted to be an actor," he once said. "I just wanted a boat and an escape." Despite his aversion, Hayden delivered memorable performances in noir classics like The Asphalt Jungle and The Killing, and made a triumphant return to the role of the deranged General Jack D. Ripper in Dr. Strangelove. His brief role in The Godfather was emblematic of his inner conflicts. Sterling Hayden died of prostate cancer on May 23, 1986, in Sausalito, California, at the age of 70. A sailor, an actor, a rebel, and a soul torn between duty and desire, he remains one of cinema's most compelling enigmas. Alex Rocco as Mo Green. Alex Rocco, born Alessandro Federico Petriconi Jr., was born on February 29, 1936 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. In 1972, at the age of 36, he played Las Vegas casino tycoon Mo Green in the cinematic masterpiece The Godfather. His character, the founder of the Las Vegas gambling empire, was brutally and famously murdered by Michael Corleone. This role marked a turning point in Rocco's career and set his life on a path full of strange twists and haunting echoes. Before entering the glamorous world of Hollywood, Rocco was a real gangster. Under the name Alexander Petriconi, he was an associate of the notorious Winter Hill Gang in Boston. He was arrested for assault, property damage, and even suspected in a murder related to the Irish Mafia wars of the 1960s. After his release from prison, his wife divorced him, and his car was bombed. He later admitted, "If I had stayed, I would have died." Ball! Rocco escaped Boston by flipping a coin. Heads for Miami, tails for California, and fate took him west to Hollywood. In California, he studied acting with Leonard Nimoy and adopted the stage name Alex Rocco. Although he tried to tone down his thick Boston accent, the gangster vibe remained intact. With his gravelly voice and cold eyes, Rocco was quickly cast in villainous roles, and it was Moe Greene who made his name. Rumor has it that after the film, he was threatened by real-life casino characters for borrowing too much from reality. In addition to The Godfather, Rocco appeared in Get Shorty, A Bug's Life, That Thing You Do, and won an Emmy for his role as an eccentric talent agent in the hit Teddy Z. Despite his career's rise, his personal life was tumultuous. He endured several failed marriages, lost his wife to cancer, and the sudden death of his adopted son, Mark Rocco, a talented director, at the age of 46. These lingering pains forced him to retreat from the spotlight, and in his later years he focused mainly on voice acting. Alex Rocco died of pancreatic cancer on July 18, 2015, at his home in Studio City, at the age of 79. He is remembered as a man who literally lived two lives, first as Petricone, the Boston gangster, and then as Rocco, the screen icon. And in both worlds, he remained a figure no one could easily take down. Lenny Montana as Luca Brasi. Lenny Montana, born Leonardo Passifaro, was born on March 13, 1926, in Brooklyn, New York. He played Luca Brasi in The Godfather, 1972, a 46-year-old assassin with an almost obsessive loyalty to Don Corleone. The role was brief but haunting, and Montana played it perfectly, not only because of his towering 6'5" frame, but also because of his own violent past in real life. Before his Hollywood fame, Montana was a professional wrestler who roamed the ring under the name Zebra Kid. He later became a feared henchman for the Colombo crime family. He was arrested, worked as a bodyguard for mafia bosses, and saw firsthand how intimidation, arson, and murder worked. Classic underworld tactics. When The Godfather was casting Luca Brasi, Montana happened to be on set as the current bodyguard and was cast on the spot. His apparent nervousness around Marlon Brando was real, and director Francis Ford Coppola skillfully turned it into part of Brasi's insecure personality, a nervous assassin who congratulates Don Corleone on his daughter's wedding day. Hollywood, however, couldn't completely save Montana from his past. After the film, he took on a number of supporting roles in action films and television, but he never quite escaped his muscle-bound image. In his later years, he lived in fear of retribution for old debts to the criminal underworld. With his marriages failing and his financial troubles mounting, he turned to alcohol and became increasingly isolated. Once a fearsome symbol of crime both on screen and in real life, he became a tired, faded figure. On May 12, 1992, Lenny Montana died of a heart attack at his home in Lindenhurst, New York. He was 66 years old, a man who had once terrified audiences and opponents alike, and who had passed away quietly. Marlon Brando was born on April 3, 1924, in Omaha, Nebraska. At the age of 48, he entered the world of cinematic immortality with the role of Don Vito Corleone in the 1972 film The Godfather. With his husky voice and stern eyes, Brando portrayed the aging mafia boss with incredible dignity, earning him his second Oscar. But behind the camera, Brando's life was turbulent. He weathered 3 storms, all of which ended in disaster. His first wife, Anna Kashfi, left him after less than 2 years. His second wife, Movita Castaneda, left him empty-handed because they were not legally divorced. His third wife, Tahitian actress Tarita Terapaya, collapsed under scandal and irreconcilable conflict. His greatest personal tragedy was his children. In 1990, his son, Christian Brando, murdered his sister, Cheyenne, her boyfriend, in their home. 6 years later, Cheyenne committed suicide at the age of 25, after struggling with depression and addiction. Brando has publicly admitted that he was a terrible father. Drowning in guilt and grief, he became withdrawn, obese, and an alcoholic. Marlon Brando died on July 1, 2004, at UCLA Medical Center at the age of 80. The cause was respiratory failure due to pulmonary fibrosis and congestive heart failure. He also suffered from diabetes and liver cancer. His ice cubes were hidden in Tahiti, his last paradise, and Death Valley, along with those of his best friend, Wally Cox. Al Martino as Johnny Fontaine. Al Martino, born Jasper Cini on October 7, 1927 in Philadelphia, was 45 when he gave voice to the Godfather singer Johnny Fontaine. The character, who begs Don Corleone to save his moribund career, mirrors Martino's own story of mafia entanglements, career decline, and quiet despair behind the spotlight. In the early 1950s, Martino rose to fame with his hit Here in My Heart, his first #1 single in the UK. But fame came with danger. The mafia reportedly bought his contract and blackmailed him for $75,000. Fearing for his life, he fled to England, living in exile as his American career collapsed. The role of Johnny Fontaine was originally offered to Vic Damone, but Martino, allegedly with the help of crime boss Russell Bufalino, pressured the studio with negative press. Damone, fearing retaliation, dropped out, and Martino won the role back. In essence, he became Johnny Fontaine by living his life. Martino was married 3 times. the first two of which ended in divorce. He struggled with alcoholism and financial problems later in life, but remained beloved for his warm baritone voice and his presence in the Godfather films. He died of heart failure on October 13, 2009, just 6 days after his 82nd birthday, at his home in Springfield, Pennsylvania. He was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in California, his story ending like his most famous role, with echoes of music, loyalty, and quiet regret. James Caan as Sonny Corleone. James Edmund Caan was born on March 26, 1940 in the Bronx, New York. At the age of 32, he plays Sonny Corleone, the youngest son of the Corleone family. The role earned him an Oscar nomination and cemented his status in the film industry. Caan was married 4 times, each ending in divorce. His second wife, Sheila Ryan, lasted less than a year. He had 5 children, including actor Scott Caan, although their relationship was often limited. James later admitted that he regretted not being present enough in his children's lives. The 1980s were his darkest period. After losing his beautiful sister to leukemia, Caan fell into depression, abused drugs, and disappeared from the screen for 5 years. He even considered giving up acting. What saved him? Seeing his dog become emaciated because he couldn't afford food. The moment prompted him to strike back. Outside of acting, Caan is a 6th-degree black belt in karate, a rodeo athlete, and is known for his wild lifestyle. He has admitted to having the FBI suspend mafia laws and even allegedly hired someone to threaten Joe Pesci in exchange for an expensive hotel room. Even after that, he kept working. From Elf 2003 to Get Smart 2008, Queen Bees 2021, and his final role in Fast Charlie 2023 with Pierce Brosnan, he kept working. He called Francis Ford Coppola about a cameo in Megalopolis, calling it his dream song. James Caan died on July 6, 2022, in Los Angeles, at the age of 82, of a heart attack due to coronary artery disease. He also suffered from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and died of congestive heart failure. He was cremated at Eden Park Memorial Cemetery, one of Hollywood's most famous Jewish cemeteries. Richard Conte as Don Emilio Barzini. Richard Conte, born Nicholas Peter Conte, was born on March 24, 1910, in Jersey City, New Jersey. At the age of 62, he appeared in The Godfather as Don Emilio Barzini, a rival boss with a deadly cold face who silently orchestrated the film's bloodiest betrayals. In real life, Conte shares his character's ambition and tenacity. He worked as a truck driver, a singing waiter, and a shoe salesman to make ends meet. While working at a resort in Connecticut, he was discovered by Elia Kazan, a meeting that changed his life. During the 1940s and 1950s, Conte rose to prominence in crime dramas and noir films, starring in Cry of the City, Whirlpool, and The Big Combo. With his chiseled face and commanding voice, he became the archetype of the benign but dangerous villain. However, Conte's personal life was fraught with difficulties. I was married twice. His first marriage to actress Ruth Story ended in divorce, while his second marriage to Shirley Garner lasted until his death, but was marred by health problems and financial worries. His son, Mark Conte, became a film editor, and his grandson, Chris Conte, played in the NFL. On April 3, 1975, Conte suffered a heart attack and a massive stroke. After 8 hours of fighting in the intensive care unit at UCLA Medical Center, he died on April 15th, at the age of 65. He was buried at Westwood Memorial Park in Los Angeles, next to Hollywood royalty, where he deserved to be. Lettieri as Virgil Sollozzo. Alfredo Lettieri was born on February 24, 1928, and at the age of 44, he gave one of his most relaxed performances in The Godfather. In 1972, as Virgil the Turk Sollozzo, a cold, calculating human trafficker who dares to challenge Vito Corleone, Lettieri brought to life a character so terrifying that even the Don was wary of approaching him. What makes this performance so memorable is that Lettieri never strayed from his role. Fluent in Italian and believed to be related to Genovese crime boss Tommaso Ebole, Lettieri lived and breathed the world he lived in. Al Pacino later revealed in his 2024 memoir that Lettieri took him to meet real-life mafia men to help him better understand the role of Michael Corleone. Before The Godfather, Lettieri played iconic, anti-gray heroes like Marlon Brando in The Night After, Steve McQueen in The Getaway, and Charles Bronson in Mr. Majestic. He even wrote the screenplay for the 1971 gangster film Villain. Whether he was a roughneck or a charmer, Lettieri never seemed to act. He was just telling the truth. But behind the curtain was a man obsessed with vice. He lived like a gangster, addicted to alcohol and cigarettes, partying all night and falling into 2 missing houses. Friends said he always looked tired, as if he knew his time was running out. On October 18, 1975, 3 years after The Godfather nominated him for an international award, Al Lettieri died of a heart attack in New York City at the age of 47. Richard S. Morgana King as Carmela Corleone Maria Grazia Morgana Messina, known professionally as Morgana King, was born on June 4, 1930 in Pleasantville, New York. At 42, She played the serene Carmela Corleone in The Godfather, 1972, a quiet but emotional anchor of the Corleone dynasty. Though her voice was soft on screen, King possessed a voice that once filled concert halls. A jazz singer with a rare contralto voice spanning 4 octaves, she was nominated for a Grammy and released more than 30 albums. While critics praised her artistry, the mainstream spotlight often eluded her, and she longed to be seen not just as a singer, but as a serious stage performer. King was married twice, both times to accomplished jazz musicians. Her first marriage to trumpeter Tony Fruzella ended in divorce. Her second husband, trombone player Willie Dennis, died in a car accident just 4 years after they married. She then lost her only daughter, Grayson, in 2008, a grief that haunted her in her later years. Morgana King died of non-Hodgkin lymphoma in Palm Springs, California, on March 22, 2018, at the age of 87. There were no elaborate memorials, no industry fanfare, just the quiet passing of a woman who brought dignity, depth, and sadness to one of the film's most respected families. John Marley as Jack Woltz. John Marley, born Mortimer Leon Marleby on October 17, 1907, in Harlem, New York City, was 65 years old when he played Jack Woltz in The Godfather, 1972. In a brief but memorable role, he portrayed the arrogant Hollywood producer whose defiance leads to one of cinema's most iconic scenes, the discovery of the severed head of his prized horse in his bed. Marley's raw, terrifying scream became an enduring image in 20th century cinema. Over the course of a 45-year career, Marley appeared in nearly 250 films and television shows. He won the Volpe Cup at the 1968 Venice Film Festival for John Cassavetes' Faces, and was nominated for both an Oscar and a Golden Globe for his moving performance in 1970's Love Story. But it was The Godfather that made his permanent mark on popular culture, despite its limited runtime. Despite his prolific career, Marley never achieved A-list stardom. That obscurity sometimes frustrated him. He married twice and had 3 children, but his final years were marked by isolation and failing health. His second marriage to Beverly was marred by his reclusiveness and heart disease. In 1984, at the age of 76, John Marley died after open-heart surgery. He was buried quietly at Cedar Park Cemetery in Emerson, New Jersey, a modesty befitting a man who once screamed to become a movie legend.